Dear Ajahn, sometimes our mind just refuses to stay with the meditation object, example breath. What do we do then? How do I sustain awareness in daily activities? We were talking yesterday that if one hasn't done a lot of meditation, or even if one has done a lot of meditation, but then you let the formal practice go a bit, sometimes life can get busy and complicated in unforeseen ways, and the practice slips. If we've let our mind wander a lot, and I think the portable devices, they do add to that tendency, sending the mind out, distracting oneself, then it's normal for the mind not to be the meditation object in the beginning of a retreat. One thing that we can do is with the walking meditation is walk a bit on a long and walk a bit faster. So you make the meditation object more obvious, less subtle. So in the Thai forest tradition, the monks' walking meditation path is somewhere between 15 and 20 meters long, normally. And normally we'd walk at a normal pace. And in the Burmese tradition, it tends to be much slower. But in the Thai forest tradition, we walk normally, and if there's some sleepiness in the mind, we would walk fast. And because understanding that the mind is dull, it needs a more obvious meditation object. And what is often the case is you walk fast for a period of time. The mind wakes up, slow down a bit, can feel the footsteps. Then when you go and meditate, there's enough mindfulness to be with the breath. So we alternate. Another thing we can do is chant. Obviously in a retreat situation you can't, but if you come to you're on your meditation mat, trying to meditate, the mind just isn't with the object, then you do some chanting. And after the chanting, meditate. And normally there will be a bit more collectedness, and it's through having a regular meditation practice that we just would not miss out on is that's what makes it possible to maintain awareness throughout the day. After that meditation session in the morning, when one does have to set the intention, because you can literally become a little bit peaceful, come out of that peacefulness, go on autopilot, just drop. One has to set the intention to bring new habits into our old habits. So you set the intention to maintain awareness throughout the day in various activities. So for myself now, 29 years into Buddhist practice, normally when I wake up in the morning, I would be aware of the breath when I wake up, be aware of the breath. And when I go to the bathroom, I can feel the feelings at the bottom of my feet, because 3 decades of training oneself, you don't have to try very hard to be aware of the breath. If I'm not talking myself, if I'm listening to someone else, if I'm sitting in a car, I tend to be aware of the breath. So it definitely works, but it does take effort and consistency. Dear Ajahn, may I know how to do death meditation? What is the difference between death and graveyard meditations? Various ways to do it. Death meditation, one way to do it is one can ask oneself, how may I die today? What are some of the ways that I might die today? And then you imagine. It's good to maintain some awareness of the breathing, so I use the word maranang. Breathing in, maranang. Breathing out, maranang. Maranang means death and dying. And that keeps you a little bit centered, and that word will help to keep you on track of your contemplation. You can also just recollect beings that you knew who died. So that might be some of your pets when you were young, a grandparent, a great-grandparent, an auntie, a great-auntie. And you just go through Maranang, recollect just the fact of the death of that being, Maranang, the fact of the death of another being. And then we just, after doing that for a few minutes, 10, 15 minutes, we gently acknowledge, I am of this body is of this nature, I'm also going to die. And the graveyard contemplation is different. The graveyard contemplation is one imagines one's own body dead, and then it bloats as a corpse, and then animals tear it apart, and then there's scattered bones with blood on them. And so I do have on my website collection 2, the Peace Beyond Suffering website is a death and dying collection, and you can listen to talks about death and dying, and there is a graveyard contemplation there if you would like to imagine yourself as a bloated corpse. It is recommended by the Buddha, because think of how much effort we put in trying to make them attractive and clean and smell nice, and that's where we're all headed. There's a training in being less attached and less identified with the body, and Lumpur Nan says, the more we can see the body is not beautiful, in Pali asubha, the more beautiful the mind becomes. It's something we don't quite understand, is that the mind affected by craving, clinging, identification, attachment is dark. The mind that sees more clearly, according to truth, is clear and bright and beautiful. So don't try to hate the body. We don't do it with any kind of ill will. We're just having a look at the truth of the body, what they actually are. And that's what makes the mind more beautiful. There's clarity. Hi Ajahn, is there a difference in the bad karma created if one has to remove ant infestations in one's house out of necessity, or if one does it out of anger and irritation? I'd say there's a little bit of difference. If you have anger and irritation, it's more bad karma. But killing beings is bad karma. It's different karmas ripen in different ways. So if we're involved in shortening the lifespans of lots and lots and lots of beings, our lifespan will be shortened. So it's not like someone says on this occasion it's okay, on that occasion it's not okay. I guess in Taoism you have those guys at the gates of hell that look at the. I don't think it's quite like that. It's if you shorten lifespans of living beings, your lifespan will be shortened. So we do it. You do it as little as possible. But I live in a forest, and in Asia, every now and then ants invade, and our gardener has to do something about it. That's part of his job. And so at the end of his meditation, he dedicates merits to whatever beings he had to kill in doing his job. There was one occasion when there was a particular type of nasty ant that had invaded Ajahn Chah's monastery, and I can't remember, it was maybe fire ants or something, but they were nasty, and the soldiers actually came and were going to remove the ants, and Lumpur Cha allowed them to do it. So it's like if the monastery was like uninhabitable by monks, then it's serious. And so sometimes compromises need to be made, but the point is we do it as little as possible, understanding that we don't really get away with anything. It's good to practice these other practices of releasing fish, crabs, turtles every now and then, because making gestures of extending the lives of creatures and helping some creatures who have an experience of fear and being burdened to suddenly experience freedom and less burden, less fear, will be helpful for our own karmic soup. Put some more good things in there. So even the great Ajahns do this. Lumpur Piak, Lumpur Nan, on their birthdays, their disciples offer them crabs and fish and eels and all sorts of things, cows, and they release them. And people, their students determine, may they have a long life. I'd like to live to 75, thank you. Dear Ajahn, a few times during the sitting meditation in an aircon room or seated under a fan, my mind was aware this body feels very hot. What causes this to arise? So our bodies have fire element in them, and it's one of those things we don't really notice, but tend to assume that the heat's coming from outside. And our own bodies, if they're healthy, they're about 37 degrees, which is pretty warm, you know. If you walk outside and it's 37 degrees, you notice. So I think with air conditioning, though, it's on a bit, and then it's off a bit, it's on a bit, and it's off a bit, so you can feel a bit warm at times. But apparently, when contemplating the fire element, it's all temperature, so even feelings of cold is also, it just means less fire element, and there's various ways to contemplate the body made of elements. Earth is kind of the easiest. The question, the Buddha's advice on the 5 aggregates in the Anattalakkana Sutta. And clinging one, the Buddha asks us to investigate, instructs us to see the body, for example, as this is not mine, I am not this is not myself. What is the difference between 2 and 3? This I am not, this is not myself. So the way I understand it is, there's different ways to investigate. So we have an assumption that the whole thing is functioning as we call it me, right? So you have a knee pain, my knee hurts. What do you think about that? I like it. What do you think about that? I don't like it. We take it all to be a self, and so when we investigate it, and the assumption and the habit is very deep, so when we investigate it, this challenge is that you investigate as you're going through the body. So one way I've done it is the sense bases, and as well as hair of the head, hair of the body, as well as body parts and elements, and go through the sense bases, because we have things that we think are beautiful. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's not beautiful. Oh, that's a lovely sound. Oh, that's a horrible sound. I like that sound. I don't like that sound. So when you place your awareness in your eyeballs, for example, in the area of the eyeballs, and just ask, where is the self? And you can't find it. Go to the ears. Okay, I like this sound, I don't like that sound, where is the self? And you have to be sincere. You place your mindful awareness there and you sincerely ask, where is it? Where is the self that likes this sound and doesn't like that sound? The tongue, I like this taste, I don't like that taste. This is delicious, this is disgusting. Where is it? And you'll notice when you contemplate in these ways that it's not there, it can't be found. So it's like, it's an investigation. It's like, once you do that, it's that you instruct yourself, I am not this. But then this is not myself. It's like, you see, there's no self there. It's like you inform consciousness on a deeper level, mindfulness, mindful awareness. You inform that there's no self there. But when we grasp at the whole thing, all functioning together, we assume it's a self. So it's just different ways of investigating. And then affirming. It's like, I'm looking for the self in the hair, the teeth, the nails. Can't find it. Similarly, you put the awareness on top of your head. My hair. Where's the self? In your mouth, thinking of your teeth, my teeth. Where's me, where's mine? It's not I, it's not mine. Then this is not myself, this is not a self. So we train, we're just looking at it from different angles and trying to find it. When we don't find it, we acknowledge, yeah, it's really not there. Contemplation. Dear Rajan, how do I differentiate between thinking and contemplation? So contemplation, in terms of Buddhist practice, it's the three ways of developing wisdom: through listening and studying, through then contemplating, is that you contemplate a clear theme. So Lord Buddha gives us themes that are wise to contemplate. So the nature of the body, death and dying, recollecting past good deeds, the various anusatis, the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dhamma, qualities of the Sangha, and 5 subjects for frequent recollection, various things that Lord Buddha says. Contemplate this, contemplate this. So when we're doing a reflective meditation, try to keep it within that parameter. You actually decide, I'm going to contemplate such and such, and you try to keep your contemplation within those parameters. So one can contemplate all sorts of things, but it tends to go, if you don't have very clear and state a clear intention what you're going to be contemplating, then it will tend to one thought conditions another thought, conditions another thought, and you go wandering all over the place. It's, I suppose you could call it contemplation, but it might not be wise. So we want to do wise contemplations. And why is thinking not beneficial? So it can be, or it cannot be. So, but if we have an untrained mind and we just let it go where it will go, it normally leads to suffering. It's when we get pleasant experiences, we have, pleasant thoughts, approving thoughts. When we have unpleasant experiences, we get irritated, we get angry. So if we don't train the mind, it's going to hanker after the pleasant and have aversion to the unpleasant. And if we act on that without mindfulness, we get ourselves in trouble. And in general, if there's a lot of thinking, there's going to be a big sense of self, right? Because what are we thinking about? The past, the future, people that we know, other places we want to go, we don't want to go. It's normally a self with a story. And so that darkens the mind. And the hindrances, it'll be craving for, craving not for, doubt, restlessness, worry. And if you can be with your meditation object, there's just going to be a lot more clarity, less sense of self, more brightness, less darkness. It's not necessarily evil thinking, but if untrained, it can become evil. Dear Ajahn, practicing metta, I tend to send the mind outwards in all directions. Is it wrong to send the mind outwards? I don't know if it's wrong, but I think it's less efficient. So, in my experience of trying to cultivate metta, if I'm thinking of another person, I send metta to that person, I actually send my mind out. I find that like metta's building up, I have some metta, I'm sending it out in my experience, then the metta's gone. And I have to start again. But if I hold the metta here, and I include more and more beings, kind of visualizing them in front of me, then the metta tends to get more and more and more and more. So that just works better for myself. What should I do when the mind becomes peaceful from metta meditation? Should I bring attention to the breath or continue spreading metta? So it's up to you. It's up to you. And I think in general it's good to do both. So 5 to 10, 15 minutes of metta and then breath meditation is... But there's, in periods of retreat, for example, we might want to really stretch it just to see what a beautiful mind state it is, just to see how much metta we can have. Because then that becomes like a new reference point that we have. And when we have our habits of irritation, grudge holding and anger, when we're out of retreat, something annoys us, we have this new standard that we can remember. You don't have to be this, you don't have to become irritated, you don't have to be angry, you know you have the ability to have loving kindness. So sometimes it's nice to kind of do a bit of a workshop and stretch the capacity. It also does produce great great merit. So, and that merit is protective as well. So it's good to have protective merit in a dangerous world. One great practitioner in Thailand told me that I had protective merit. So I left my monastery and fire came to the monastery. But I left in time. Fires in Thailand are not too dangerous, but the forestry department's been helping put out fire the last 2 days. It's just interesting. It's the day after I left. This practitioner said, if there was a fire that's coming, you would leave before the fire came. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Of course, I've been spreading metta and dedicating merit to the monks in the monastery. The farmers in that area tend to, I think the same thing happens in Borneo, doesn't it? Then it blows this way, all over Southeast Asia. Can Ajahn please offer some encouragement? I think I'm from a hell realm, as my mind can go into very dark places. Please help me to find the strength to continue on the path at those dark moments. If you're sitting in this room with these people and this Ajahn, I don't think you just came from hell. And that's why people are laughing. This person believes it. This person obviously believes that they may have just come from hell. I remember I wanted to know from one gifted Ajahn where I was in the time of Lord Buddha, and if I'd met him. And that great monk asked me, where do you think you were in the time of Lord Buddha? And I answered, probably still in hell. And he's like, no, if you were in hell, then you wouldn't be out yet. You don't get out very easily. So we all have dark moments, and the human body, the human world is between the ghosts, the demons, the devas, the Brahma devas, and it does tend to fly between dark spaces and bright spaces, and yeah. But obviously people, I think the aversive in the Lord Buddha describes that there's three. We all have greed, hatred and delusion, but we tend to have more of one, depending on our character type, and probably the aversive types may have more in the area of cruelty, ill will, domineering, those kind of qualities, and the greed types have more lust and covetousness and pride. And they're both dark. But it's the commitment to the precepts. It's the speech of the karma of speech and body that if you don't break those precepts, you're a human being, even if you have hellish mind states. But if you act on them, speak and commit words to them, then that's when you're harming your human situation. To know that a dark mind state is a dark mind state is already good. It means there's aspects of right view. It means that there's some clarity. So it's actually a hopeful situation. And then I think skillful distraction. If the mind tends to like I've developed a habit recently, but I'm not sure it's perfectly wholesome. I like watching crime documentaries sometimes, well-produced ones, and it's like, because it's based on truth, right? Because it's like there's the man or woman who killed somebody, and then there's the detectives and the lawyers, and then there's the family. It's a bit like just having a glimpse of samsara. There's the asuras who are fighting the dawatings, the devas, and there's the yakas, and it's just like, okay, look at samsara for an hour. But it's always nice to see the good people who did the right thing to help the people catch the baddie. And but like I said, I don't know if it's skillful. Probably not. But what it does do sometimes is it shows you that if you don't have a commitment to ethics, and if you don't have strong moral principle, and if you're... So sometimes it's the case that a man got bored with his wife and he wants a new one, so he just gets rid of her, like it's throwing out the rubbish or something. And he gets caught, obviously. Has to spend the rest of his life in jail. And but sometimes the woman does the same thing. Kill the husband with eye drops. Yeah, who would do such a thing? People do. So we can see that when we don't have a strong moral standard, that mind can go in that direction. And so, skillful distraction, association with the wise. If the mind is beginning to kind of hang out in a dark place, go and do something skillful. It's like you're going against that current. It's like saying, okay, no, I'm not going to just indulge in this. I'm actually going to go and do something skillful now. Go and chant, go and read a sutta, go to a center, go and do something helpful, productive. I used to think I was from hell too. My teacher told me I was actually a deva at that time. So there you go. Dear Ajahn, can we trust this mind? No. Can this mind play us out? Yes. When we die, will this mind follow us in life after life? Now that's an interesting question. This mind, what is this mind? Will this mind follow us? It's a more subtle level of mind that goes to the next birth. Chitta, they call it. So this mind won't go. The one with all your current thoughts and habits, that won't go, but the impressions that go into the subtle mind that become your character traits, your character tendencies, that does go. But then because of your social conditioning, you will end up having a different personality. And depending on the weather, the parenting, the situation, all of those things. But if you have a strong inclination towards being generous and kind and helpful, probably that will go with you. If you have a strong inclination towards being possessive and greedy and vengeful, that will go with you. This is why we have to train our minds to have good habits. It's only the Buddha that has no latent tendencies left. It takes a lot longer, 16 Fora Sankhyas. And then Buddhas are, among their many wonderful, amazing abilities and the qualities, is that they really can be just exactly what's most appropriate for that being in front of them, because they have access to every archetype, every possible, and they look and they're able to respond perfectly to that one in front of them without anything affecting their judgment from their latent character traits. But even someone was complaining about Sariputta skipping over puddles. You may be familiar with that story. Equal to Lord Buddha in wisdom, helped to establish tens of thousands, possibly millions of beings in stream entry. When he saw a puddle, he used to skip over it daintily. And some people complained, this Sariputta, jumping over puddles, looks unbecoming for a bhikkhu. And Lord Buddha explained that Sariputta had been a monkey for 500 lives. And he still had this tendency, monkeys like to jump over puddles and see their reflection in a puddle. So even with that much mindfulness and that much wisdom, Sariputta still had that tendency, which I find makes me like him even more. And it's an important point, because we don't have to absolutely perfect our personality, because in a way you can't. You have to work with it to make sure it's within ethical parameters, that you can't make yourself be a different person, for example, in terms of your deepest traits. Dear Ajahn, you mentioned that there were 5 black beings punching you at a hotel in India. Are they coming to get merits? I don't think that, no. Monks have 227 precepts, so why is it that the unseen beings can still disturb monks? It's a good question, isn't it? I asked my teacher the same question. I asked my teacher, why, when you're leading a group of people doing wholesome things and you have merit, why would these beings be up? And you're dedicating merit wherever you go, sharing merit. Why would these beings be upset? And he said, that's why. I said, why? And he said, well, when beings have wrong view, when their mind becomes really dark, if someone and they're in a subhuman state, so they were probably what they call asura, and they're in a subhuman state. If somebody with virtue comes into their space, they perceive that as burning. They become so attached and accustomed to darkness that virtue burns them. So they want you to get the hell out of here. You're hurting me. And so what happens? You get up and you do the chant, it burns them more. And they run away. Sadhu. But you don't have the intention to burn them. But that's one of the scary things about non-virtue, is it can lead to becoming so dark that you perceive virtue as annoying. And yeah, I was surprised as well. But that was in Rajgir. Rajgir is Bihar is the poorest part of northwest India, and there's been a lot of suffering in Rajgir. How come they can bother monks? Yeah. I remember even one monk that I know was telling me he had a student that was building a chedi, and one of his karmic debtors was really angry at him. And this monk was spreading metta to him, and this karmic debtor then came to that Ajahn, and he said he had like this ball with, like a metal ball with a chain, and this Ajahn said he had to spread metta to it all night. Just would not stop trying to clobber him on the head with a spiky head ball. So, yeah, if you're still in samsara, you're still subject to other beings, and obviously if that great monk wasn't trying to help his disciple, that being wouldn't have come at him, right? And sometimes people we don't understand, like, I share merit, I make merit, why doesn't he just take the merit and go away? This is when we're looking at the list of the 16 upakilesa: grudge, vengefulness, spite. If we've hurt a being enough in the past, and they don't want our merit, they want you to suffer, just like you made them suffer. Unfortunately. So sometimes they don't forgive, and sometimes they don't accept the merit. But the practice of metta is very powerful. Tanajanan explains that the act of spreading metta to them, because they don't like metta, so they'll step back. They'll step back and away from you, so it still protects you. And I asked Tanajan if he still had beings that hated him and wanted him to suffer. He said, yeah. So you can have a pure mind and be liberated, and some beings, yeah, but 10 eons ago, you really hurt my feelings. I've said sorry 1,000,000 times, I don't care. We have to be careful of these mind states too, right? When we're contending with people. Lord Buddha said there are 2 types of fools. In the section on the fools in the Dhammapada, those who do something wrong and don't ask forgiveness. Those who, when asked forgiveness, don't offer it. So we ask forgiveness and we offer our forgiveness. Otherwise you become a black being kicking at a good monk. Dear Ajahn, when meditating, scenes are revolving. Am I supposed to note it and let it go? If it continues for a long time, how do I come back to the meditation? So I would say, in such a situation, I would get up and do walking meditation, establish body-based mindfulness, and keep the eyes open, and then come back, try to be with the breath again, chanting as well. Some people are more visual. It's in that state, Kanika Samadhi, Upajara Samadhi, the mind gets more sensitive. People who have that visual propensity can see things in that state. And it takes some training to not be fascinated and try and just know it and drop it. But for some people, there's a lot of various things that we've done in our past lives. So some people set a really strong intention that they want to be able to see the beings in other realms. So I had a woman come to the monastery recently, and she says, every time I meditate, I see beings coming and asking for merit, and I don't want to see it anymore, and how do I stop it? And I said, well, the problem is, probably for 500 lives, you said, may I see beings in other realms? May I see the beings in other realms? Not mindful that you're going to see more ghosts than devas, because there are more ghosts than devas. And so, can I stop it? No. And I say, suppose you're going for a drive and you see something ugly, you want to pull out your eyeballs? It's visual consciousness you can't not see. Well, it's similar to what we were talking about yesterday, that there's certain chants that you can do to dedicate merit, share merit, and then there's other chants you do trying to set a boundary. So yes, be careful what you wish for. I think Lumpur Biak can turn it off. When he has real mastery, he can turn the divine eye on and off. And he said mostly he turns it off when he's traveling, because he just sees all these road accident beings asking for merit the whole way. Dear Ajahn, Dipankara Buddha predicted that Sumedho will become Gautama Buddha. Did Gautama Buddha make any prediction about anyone becoming a future Buddha? So I'm not aware of that. Weshen, Venerable Weshen, are you aware of that? No. He may have, and it may not have made it into the suttas, but we don't know about it. Dear Ajahn, on the Sunday talk, one of the sessions, you mentioned about being the observer. Can Ajahn please elaborate on this? Yeah, so in Thai they call the puru, it's probably better translated as that which knows, the knowing, and but the literal translation is the one who knows. But it's probably better translated as that which knows. So when you particularly probably see this in meditation retreat, there's that which knows thoughts, and then there's the thoughts, there's the good thoughts, and there's the bad thoughts. It's almost like there's three people there. There's the good angel, the bad angel, and the referee. And and we train more and more in being with that which knows. But it's not a being. It's a good if there is that constant observer. It still is affected by the self-view, because that's what the self-view does. It just kind of permeates everything. And but having a consistent knowing that knows a thought is wholesome, knows a thought is unwholesome, has a sense of presence of mind, is a good thing. And we have to depend on that. As I was saying before, if I wake up, I'm usually aware of the in-breath. If I go to the bathroom, I'm aware of the footsteps, and there is this consistent knowing coming from having forced myself to meditate every morning, every afternoon, every night for decades. But the way we uproot the feeling of it being a being is through those deeper investigations, when one goes through the body parts and the elements and has insights into not-self. But yes, that becomes a consistent thing with good practice, a sense of consistent knowing and resting in that knowing. So I'm going to do the other ones after evening chanting, because I would like you to have lots of time to meditate.